Guys, how you doing? Listen, coming at you with a daily update on what's going on with the Shanquella Robinson's case. You guys wanted mainstream media sources, baby. We got the first one. We're going to read the report. And guess what? They're saying that she was actually picked up the night of November 28th. Plus, I know a lot of people think that this is Archie Bunker, Barney Rubble, in the heat of the night, whatever old school show you watch with your Meemaw and your Peepaw. You guys, I'm going to walk everybody through what actually happens in Extradition. We're also going to talk about how this isn't like getting arrested for a DUI in your local police station, what a red file means, how Interpol arrests people, and all the other things that people around the internet have been repeating, but have not bothered to do the basic research to get into. Everything tracks. I'm going to break it down for you, and you can share it with whoever needs to hear it. Also, you guys, right? Let's also not forget that the reporter that we had an exclusive interview with this is being dragged all over the internet. How do you know they're not reputable? Blah, 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 blah. I find it funny that the same people screaming this guy isn't reputable, right? Well, are literally blind to the fact, because I know they didn't do their research. They just want to hate, and literally mess up whatever they can. Baby, how you screaming this when the reporting for the police report, he broke that. For the reporting of the Mexican officials that are also in investigation, he broke that. Everything that he broke has been verified. He clearly has a source, but guess what? They actually put out a press release to actually explain why and how things are going in Mexico and why things played out the way they did. Baby, they said, you're going to put some respect on our name. Lastly, nothing. Part 2 is coming out today. You guys know I've been editing. You know your girl doesn't edit. I just get on here and talk like we're fair. But the part 2 of my 4-part interview is dropping, and this one is going to be a bombshell. Anyway, y'all, let's get into this. First, let's read the verified report for the people that want some type of mainstream news media to go in. Let me just actually say this. I find it funny. Not funny, ha, but funny, interesting, that the mainstream media, right, where they say, and I'm not throwing salt on anything or anybody, but just hear me out, right? Take what I'm saying, chew it up, swallow the meat, spit out the fat, right? I find it odd that the mainstream media were the ones that first ignored this. I find it odd that the U.S. Department of State were the ones that said in Mexico, right? Were the ones that said, no, it's alcohol poisoning. I find it odd that the Mexican government, once they saw that fight video, was like, oh no, we got the final piece we need. You going down. Even when they said we're opening investigation, the U.S. Department of State was like, no, still looks like alcohol poisoning, because they didn't care. I find it odd that the mainstream media, even though Black Twitter, YouTubers, bloggers, your neighbor, your mom, anybody that had a heart, that's all we could talk about, what happened to Shanquella. They didn't even care. But once they saw that we were interested in it, right? All of a sudden, they wanted to report on it. But how can, you ever hear that thing, you can't dismantle the master's house with his own tools? How are people that tried this, that didn't care, was going to let it get swept under the rug? The Cabo 6 were about to get away with it. It was the Metro, yes, don't get me wrong. Her parents, Black Twitter, Facebook, circling the video, asking why isn't anything being done? That is what got this to the attention of the Mexico police. And congratulations, we did it. But after that, the Metroplex and that article, which we're going to talk about, is what your faves cited for everything. It's what the ABC, CNN, look at those news sources when they're talking about the police report, when they're talking about the officials. Where did they get their sources from? Oh, that's right, this investigative reporter that we had on. So again, I find it odd that y'all saying that this person isn't authoritative and can we trust? And listen, this is all just information. Please do it. And I encourage you to do your own research, but don't sit there and speak out of turn when you didn't even do the bare basics. You don't even know how red file goes. You don't even know how federal arrest goes. You don't even know how extradition goes. And you sitting up here screaming and yelling, looking stupid. Well, how come? Because you don't understand the way the world works. That's how come. But let me sit down in school, y'all. First, let's get into the mainstream news source that you guys were all crying about. Arrest made in the death of Shanquella Robinson. Dejanay Jackson awaits extradition. Law enforcement appears to be one step closer to seeking justice in the untimely death of the 25-year-old Shanquella Robinson. This is directly from Yahoo News. Yahoo News. As was previously reported on the public outcry, right, to hold one of Robinson's friends accountable for the crime through extradition and prosecution in Mexico. Those pleas may have been answered as Dejanay Jackson has been arrested in Connecticut for the crime. Prior to the arrest, now, let me just break y'all down before the internet sleuths that never do their research. Listen, do your research. Nobody's 100% right, but baby, if you want to come and talk trash, do your research. The reason they're talking arrest is because they are using colloquial layman terms that everybody can understand. Let me explain what happens. First of all, the internet thugs being like, Interpol, how can this be true? Interpol doesn't even make arrests. I know. And Interpol doesn't do investigations either. Do you know what Interpol is? Interpol is an agency that was developed to help nations share information on criminal stuff. Somebody in the UK is being hunted down for murder, and they're over there in Morocco. Is Interpol joining in on the investigation? Yes, but when you say that, is Interpol really investigating? No, they're not. Interpol is a coordination. They make sure that the latest information is shared with the necessary authorities. They make sure that if the UK did a investigation, all that information is shared with other law enforcement agencies, no matter what country it is, because you know every country has sovereign borders, right? They make sure, instead of us going and be like, hey, I think that they're in Morocco, so we need to actually contact the Morocco authorities. We need to see permission to do. We need to make sure that we're not in violation of treaty. Interpol was created to jump over all of that. You don't need to go through all that paperwork. Interpol is giving permission. If Interpol approves it, they're giving permission for things to be shared readily. What is a red file or a red card? Can Interpol actually do any arrests? No, they don't even arrest. I'm sorry. Does Interpol even do any investigations on foreign soil? No, they don't. They share what the people are doing with each other. That is Interpol. So when they say, oh, you're being investigated by Interpol or Interpol's looking for you, Interpol in itself is just an agency that helps everybody coordinate, okay? So when you say Interpol, you are talking about the nations that are in Interpol are working together and Interpol's coordinating. However, in shorthand, for people that know anything about the criminal justice system, and forget that, for people that even bother to research, people say, oh, you're wanted by Interpol. You're not wanted by Interpol. You're wanted by Mexico, which is an Interpol nation. And Interpol is coordinating and letting all their member nations know, hey, we have a wanted person. They were in Mexico, but under the agreement being a part of Interpol, you know, you go against one of us, you go against all. That's what Interpol is, okay? Now, as far as the red card and the red file, Interpol cannot arrest anyone, just like Interpol cannot conduct investigations on foreign soil. The red card, the red file, whatever you want to call it, Interpol can't arrest anyone. What Interpol does is work with whatever country's law enforcement does and works with that law enforcement to coordinate an arrest. Interpol cannot technically arrest anyone. They just coordinate with local law enforcement. Hey, this person's wanted in Mexico. All hands on deck. Where's the feds? Where's the FBI? Where's the U.S. Marshals? Who's in charge of this? U.S. Marshals? Okay, cool, right? We know this woman is wanted, right? This woman's wanted. She's in this area. We need to work around you. We need to work with you. Here's the warrant. Please go do what you do. It saves a lot of time between just going to a random country who's not in Interpol and saying, hey, we have people that we want you to arrest. Do you know the paperwork that goes into that? But not only that, Because, let me get through this thing. Then we're going to talk about how everybody act like this is like Barney Rubble, small town police, where you get a DUI and everybody from Miss Mabel to Mr. Herbert knows about it by morning. And it's written up in the town gazette. That's not the way extradition works. That's not even the way the feds make you aware that somebody has been actually detained. So she hasn't been arrested. Let me just break this down. 1, Interpol can't arrest. 2, they coordinate with local authorities. And when I say local, I mean governmental authorities. And if they locate what state she is in, right? We're going to talk about that. I'm going to say that for part 2. If they locate what state they are in, then all of a sudden, they work with the local state authorities. And if they work with, but again, Interpol coordinates with. Now, let's talk about arrest. Even when she is taken into custody by local authorities, she is not technically arrested. People were using that as a layman's terms for people that for people to easily understand. But those same people that need it broken down to them, at this point, they don't want to understand. They just want to sit and yell, "I don't understand." Read a book and maybe you will. Okay. But here's what I'm saying, right? Arrest in custody. Since you are being charged in a foreign, let's apply this facts to the case. You're wanted for, there's a warrant for your arrest in Mexico. They catch you in America. Where they think they caught her, I'm going to talk about that in part 2, but let me just say this. They catch you in America. Because there's no arrest warrant for you in America, they cannot arrest you. What they do is they detain you. They detain you and you await deportation back to the Interpol country that has given a verified, legitimate arrest warrant. Because when you put in the arrest warrant, you have to give all the evidence why you think this person is guilty. Now, when you are detained, right, a lot of things can happen. If this is your home country that you're detained in and you're in custody, detention, in anticipation for a thing, couple of things happen. 1, you can fight extradition. You can literally petition your government to say, no, I want to be tried as a U.S. citizen in America. And then Mexico has to send back paperwork to say why they think. Now, here's the thing. The FBI has already okayed extradition. However, you always in America have a right to fight extradition if it is, of course, your home country. I assume Desiree Jackson is American. It's not over, right? So that's just one thing, right? So you can fight it. 2, there's a lot of paperwork that goes into even extradition, a lot of paperwork. I know we're used to the show where, a child, like somebody's been kidnapped and the police bust through and defeat the bad guy and do all this stuff. And then as like the bad guy is like being like hauled away all bloody and blue and this and that, who is it? The cop that busted them down calls the family and say, "We got him, book him, Daniel," and winks at the camera. And then while they're still like, being handcuffed, the parents come running, tears down their eyes. Oh my God. And they embrace their child. Let me tell y'all something. That is made for TV. Let me tell y'all something. When the feds come and get you, unless there's somebody there with you, don't nobody know the feds came and got you. And when they have you in their system, ask people that have been arrested by the feds, you disappear for 4 or 5 days minimum. Why? Because they are processing paperwork. It's not a local town. The information's there, but they don't make anything readily available. This isn't being arrested for a DUI. This isn't sitting there waiting for an arraignment. They have to get the information in the system in a certain amount of time, but it's not 24 hours. It's not 48 hours. And even if this wasn't deportation, what they do is they take you into custody. Let's just say you're arrested by the feds for murder. Let's just say by the feds, they take you into custody, right? Nobody except for the people that were around you know that you were taken into custody. They sit there, they do the paperwork, they question you. You can't get an attorney. right? That's why you get that one phone call. But if you choose not to call an attorney, they don't notify anyone until they're done extracting all the information they can from you. And then they get around to putting it in the database. Ask anybody that's actually been arrested by the feds and the family didn't know or somebody didn't know. It is literally 4 or 5 days until they even put you in the database to even see where you're at, what prison you're being held at. And that's for murder. For deportation, it takes days for the system to be updated. They're processing paperwork, they're doing this, they're doing that. She might get a lawyer. A lot of stuff is going on. So just because I don't see anything, well, all you have to do is go to the FBI site or do a Google search about the way detention and deportation happens, or even how soon do you show up in the federal database if you are arrested. This isn't even deported. Detained to be extradited for arrest, to see how long it shows up. Ask people. I'm not making this up. Again, everything that you read, please verify. Because as we know, even on the news and medical officials, in fact, people lie. And that's how cover-ups come up. Trust no one. But if you're going to be spouting stuff, and I don't understand, please, instead of getting on your righteous indignation because what you saw on TV or what you saw in your hometown, right? I'm not talking to y'all, I'm talking, but what you saw in your hometown don't actually make sense. Why don't you actually take the time to actually just do a Google search? The feds don't hide that, they'll let you know. And there's a lot of people on a lot of sites that talk about how unfair they think it is that when their loved one is arrested, they can't get any information about where they are, whether they've even been detained, or even if they're in custody for 4 or 5 days. The only person that can get that is your lawyer, and that's if you called a lawyer. That's if you called a lawyer. But if you said that you don't have a lawyer and didn't request a lawyer, even a lawyer that your family hires on behalf of you will have to wait until you show up in the database. Now, when's the arrest coming? This is international law. There's a treaty between America and Mexico, but this is how it works in most sovereign nations. You cannot be arrested for a crime in a sovereign nation for Mexico on another country's sovereign nation. Do you know why? Because the law enforcement, first of all, Mexican law enforcement cannot come and breach another person's borders and come and snatch you up. That is in direct violation of a treaty. You may not have law enforcement from another country working over your citizens in America. You just can't. It violates every treaty. It violates our civil rights. A police officer in Mexico in America has no right to detain you, question you, or do anything. You have no authority. You are not an officer of the law. You are not an officer of the government. You are nothing but a civilian. That is why you need to extradite. Because once you are on Mexico soil and trade in Mexico, for Morocco, for the UK, for any place, right? It's part of our protection as being a US citizen. A law enforcement officer from England, for Nairobi, they cannot come and arrest you. Who are you? You have no authority here. This is American ground. So what do? This is why she's awaiting extradition. Once she gets extradited and she is on Mexico soil, and they will meet her at the border, right? Once you touch down and you are on Mexico soil, you are arrested immediately. You're arrested immediately, but guess what? Also, I think it's part 3 or 4 of the interview. It's going to go into what's going to happen and how they even have all that stuff. It's really interesting, you guys. Anyway, and this is coming from the source. Okay, so let's get back into this. Sorry, I got sidetracked because it just boggles my mind. They say that, hold on. They're saying, where is it? So let's also talk about how they're saying Interpol agents, but they weren't actually Interpol agents. Interpol coordinated with local law enforcement working on behalf of the red card that had been filed in Interpol. Is everybody following me? If you don't, please Google. Like, this is readily. They said she was arrested on November 28th in response to a control judge issuing an arrest warrant against her for the crime of homicide. Now, the next thing brings me into what I wanted to talk about. with everybody going after this reporter, right? Prior to the arrest, a local prosecutor for the state of Baja California, Sir Daniel de la Rosa Anaya, said, we're doing everything that needs to be done, like putting out an Interpol alert and asking for the person to be sent to the US. It's about 2 Americans, the victim and the person who did wrong. Now listen, the investigative reporter and his newspaper, which is one of the biggest newspaper in that area, right? In that area, said, in that area, put out a release and statement. Take it for what you will. I will give you the cliff notes. He said, I'm sick of y'all and tired. But let's take this because he explains why a lot of things happen. Because here's the thing. A lot of people screaming and yelling and making the biggest rancor are the ones doing the least research. Because if you knew anything, you're applying small town law to something on a federal level of how the feds do things, and also on how a foreign country does things. Listen to this. For everybody saying, how can we this and that? Because he can't be speaking out, because if he is, I know Mexico, and he'd be dead from the cartels. To which I said, first of all, you need to shut up because you're being xenophobic. But not even that, you're being stupid. Do you understand that this case has nothing to do with cartels? Do you understand that maybe Mexico, admittedly, Mexico does have a problem with cartels interfering in government, interfering in police. However, in this case, nothing has to do with the cartels. An American killed another American on foreign soil and then ran. Mexico's, one of their biggest things for their gross domestic product, their GDP, right, is tourism. If tourism felt, and if tourists felt that if they go to Mexico, their wife, their sister, their mother, anyone that don't like them can off them and then go back to throwing parties and doing Instagram lives with no repercussions, that would destroy the tourist industry. Do you understand that the reason that the Mexico government is prosecuting this much is because it makes Mexico look bad? Do you understand this has nothing to do with the cartel? So why would you make dumb xenophobic remarks about he can't do that because the cartel run things? Turn off Narcos, turn off In the Heat of the Night, go to Google or read a GD book. Or how about you actually talk to reporters and see about the crimes that are actually prosecuted down there? Okay? Okay? All right, darling? All right? You win, you loudmouth Fred. But I am saying this. It has nothing, this case has nothing to do with the cartel. This has everything to do with Mexico's tourism industry. And it needs to keep up its reputation for safety so Americans keep visiting it. That's why they're throwing the book at this. That's why they're not letting it slide. God, stop being xenophobic and just let's follow this logical conclusion. Again, no one is above reproach, and everybody should be questioned and investigated. Everyone. Even when people come to me with truths or things, I do my research. I do. But the thing is, I don't base my opinion on whether somebody's lying, this and that can't be true, on what I saw in the episode of Narcos. At least before I go in on something, right? At least before I go in on something, I at least do my research. Anyway, let's get into their thing. And again, and I will not say this, I will keep saying it, I find it odd that the people being the loudest, the people doing this and that, who is this? We can't believe y'all the same people. Who broke that there was a police report and there were lies on the police report? Oh, that's right, the reporter. And everybody's been reporting that, even your faves, CNN, ABC, this and that. Who broke the fact that the doctor was under investigation? Oh, that's right, and it got picked up. Who broke? There have been several key things that none of us would know about if this guy did not report it. Clearly, he has people on the inside. Clearly, he's getting sources and information because a lot of your fans are using this. Their source. And now the same people, right? The same person that gave us the police report, that gave us the doctor's name, that gave us the fact that there was an arrest warrant issued before the Mexico government even released it. They released that there was a Mexican. Now all of a sudden, who is this person? Well, if that is who is, then stop talking about the police report. Stop talking about the doctor. Stop talking about all this stuff because it came directly from him. But let's talk about why the De La Rosa, Attorney General De La Rosa, is not giving more information. Listen to this. This comes directly from the newspaper. Important. We understand the frustration and helplessness of some Americans who are questioning the veracity of the arrest of Dejanay Jackson. They use arrest because you have to understand another thing, you guys. This is all translated, okay? When they say arrest, it means you were taken into custody by Interpol coordinated with local law enforcement, right? And by local, we mean federal, and then federal found the state that she was in. Coordinated under the red file. That was their permission, right? The red file is something, it's not just like something, there's literally all members of Interpol agreed that the red file means this. And when we see this, we will give it this type of authority and we will behave in this according manner, all right? Because of the red card, the red file that was filed, they coordinated with American federal agents. Federal agents have detained her. She is in custody, right? Even Yahoo News said it happened the night of November 28th. She is in custody. It has not entered the system because anybody that works with feds will let you know it doesn't enter the system quick. It doesn't happen 28, 48 hours. In 4 or 5 days, we'll see what's going on, right? And she's being detained to be deported back to Mexico. And once she lands on Mexico soil, she will technically, under eyes of Mexico law, be arrested. But they keep using the word arrest because there is something that is lost in translation. Anyway, for us, they go on to say, for us, the case of Shanquella Robinson has been difficult, slow, and a very complex issue because the new criminal justice system in Mexico prohibits litigating the issue in the media. That is, it does not allow officials of the state attorney general's office and state high court of justice to make a public declaration or talk openly about the case. I repeat, the new criminal justice system in Mexico prohibits litigating the issue in the media. It does not allow officials of the state attorney general's office or state high court of justice to make public declarations or talk openly of the case. So that means public declarations about whether somebody's been arrested, public declarations about who's under investigation, public declarations, it doesn't allow. Google it. I did. It's correct. Anyway, it is not possible in Mexico, which without a doubt has not allowed the information to flow quickly as it happens in the US. Again, it's lost in translation, but it's saying that the way that the attorney general is always having press conferences and all this other stuff in America, keeping us abreast of every little development, that's not possible in Mexico. Part of these laws were created, admittedly, because the cartel, when the attorney generals and arresting officers and police gave too much information, people will wind up missing. People wouldn't make it to court. They do this to protect their specific concerns about their government. They said, this must be very clear. Media such as Metropol Mex, we have obtained data and information through confidential information sources. That is to handle the information in an unofficial way, and we cannot disclose the names and positions of our informants in any way. So all you people screaming, give us a name, they're literally saying, no, we've given you stuff that has been verified. We're not giving you a name and messing up our sources. If you don't want to believe, don't believe. That's fine. But this is the way they do things. For 6 years, Metropol Mex has been working with an editorial line based on professionalism, which allows it to enjoy prestige and credibility today, like no media in the state of Baja California, sir, has ever. The reports and investigations are usually supported by documents, which has allowed our work to be recognized with journalism awards in 2019 and 2022. The Metropol Mex editorial team is certified by the International Center for Journalists and the USAID from the American people through the Border Hub program. Our information is not based on rumors or sparks, but always backed by absolute truth. We understand that some people question our information because it has not come out in the United States media. Thankfully, the media in the United States does not have reporters and correspondents in Los Cabos, where all the information of the case against Shanquella Robinson is being reported. The situation forced many media in the United States to contact us in order to have access to the information we had generated since November 18th about the femicide of Shanquella Robinson. We are making an extraordinary effort to translate into English every news we release about the case to Shanquella Robinson. We must admit that Metropolis was not technically prepared to receive more than 150,000 daily visits, and so many people connected at the same time, right? Which caused our platform to go briefly offline this afternoon. Our webmaster has worked on increasing power to be able to support traffic of our news platform. We appeal to your understanding in cases where our website does fail. We're doing everything possible to resolve these situations as they occur as soon as possible and keep Americans informed of the development of the investigation into the Shanquella Robinson case. Soon, the director of Metropolis, Gerardo Zúñiga, will launch his channel on YouTube. So he will open an alternative news space where he will give you all the details of Shanquella Robinson's case. We will have a panel of specialists to talk about the subject in a professional way, clarify doubts and questions, and put into context many confusing situations that have been generated by rumors and false news that are being spread around the American Union. Thank you very much for your attention. Attentively, Digital Media Metromex, and they sign off, and they put a link to Gerardo Zúñiga's page. Y'all, listen, part 2 is on the way. I just wanted to bring that up. Major news sources are starting to pick it up again with everything on the internet. Question everything, right? Question everything. But baby, make sure your questions are based on fact, not season 1 of Narcos and old episodes of The Heat of the Night, while you and your bestie, homie, lover, friend sit there screaming about what you don't understand, because baby, it's all on the internet. That's just saying. Also, you guys, please in the comments, be respectful. Please go after, challenge the idea, not the person. We all want justice for Shanquella. Everybody's saying that bloggers and this and that need to shut up. I would say the same thing to you, because you sound stupid, because we need to keep this case in the forefront. And I'm going to keep reporting on it until I see justice served. Because baby, I'm not going to be sitting here 6 months from now after the case is closed because something fell apart or they didn't have evidence. Don't you realize that the Mexico authorities got the missing piece through that video? And don't you realize that even though you look at it as people gossiping, don't you realize they're listening and sorting through everything, looking for clues? And maybe out of a pile of trash, there's maybe 1 or 2 clues, but baby, those 1 or 2 clues is going to be what's getting justice for Shanquella. So you can do this the way you want. But as for me, I'm fitting to turn up. And I also know that we have truth and evidence on our side. The Black Twitter, YouTube bloggers, people on Reddit, shout out to Lipstick Alley, and shout out to everybody that was in the comment section, tweeting on their Facebook, doing to the average people sitting here. We got justice for Shanquella. Yes, her family was at the front of it because they were the ones that turned us on. Let us never forget that again. Her family was at the front of us. But baby, we are going to amplify her family's voice every single day. Anyway, y'all, I'll keep you guys posted. Part 2 is dropping later on tonight, and I will talk to you later. Bye.